Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Voltron, Legendary Defender, Star Wars, The Force of Evil, and Ruby. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Justin Cummings.
Hello!
And Jeff Anderson.
Howdy, howdy.
Today, Justin, Jeff, and I will be continuing our coverage of Voltron Legendary Defender Season 2. Today discussing episodes 7 and 8, Space Mall, and The Blade of Marmora. Which you have to say it like that. That's a new rule for this podcast. And we've been... This is my first podcast jumping on coverage, but we've been having coverage every 2 episodes of Voltron Legendary Defender. You can check that out at overlyanimated.com. Search for the Overly Animated Podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. In particular, you can subscribe to our Voltron-specific iTunes feed at overlyanimated.com. That'd be good keeping up with this. So, spoilers, we have not seen future episodes beyond episode 8. We're watching as we podcast, so spoilers for only episodes 8 and before. And then we will watch 9 and 10 and podcast on that later. So you can check those out later. So, let's get into these 2 episodes. I want to start in detail with episode 8 because it's more of a plotty one. But give me your very brief impressions of episode 7 and then talk a little bit about, how you felt about episode 8. Let's start with Justin.
I liked it.
Which one?
Both. They were good these were really solid
them.
Episodes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good for 7. So what in particular about 8 did you like?
Everything. I thought this was one of the best episodes the show has done so far, if not the best. I know that up until this point, I see it's kind of been the Keith show, and this episode made it worthwhile that it's been the Keith show. Like, this was a really, really solid episode.
Yeah, this is the big Keith payoff episode for sure. Yeah. Jeff, briefly on 7 and then more detailed on 8.
7, I did not expect to like at all. I thought it was going to be a filler episode, and I was just going to watch it because I had to, but it turned out to be one of my favorites of the whole season. It felt a lot like the one of the dinner scenes from Korra. Just everyone's got their own thing, and it's really entertaining to watch. 208 also really enjoyed it, particularly the costuming, their character design for the Blade of Marmora are really well done.
Yes. You mentioned Korra dinner scenes. You're speaking my language here, Jeff. I'm more partial now that you've made this comparison to episode 7. Yeah, I like 7. I think it's a little bit frustrating with some of the plots that they give, some of the minor ones, but 7 is an episode that I think is really needed for Voltron because the show doesn't really have nightmares and daydreams of Avatar type episodes, and a lot of times it gets too bogged down in kind of the space seriousness. So I think 7 is a much needed episode, and at times is really, really good.
Now, those who are not familiar with Avatar, when you say Nightmares and Daydreams type episode, you mean like a downtime episode?
Well, a more specific Nightmares and Daydreams reference would be downtime before the big finale, but more in general, just kind of like a light, not plot heavy episode, humor based, stuff like that. You know, downtime is a good word for it. Yeah. Blade of Marmora is definitely an interesting episode, a big episode for the show. I think a big episode for the season. We finally kind of pay off the season-long arc we're building towards. I assume. I don't know what's next, so I don't know if this is how involved the Blade of Marmora will be, but I think there's a lot this episode does well. This is the best Keith episode of the series by far. That's not really saying anything because I don't know how many good Keith episodes but this season's been okay for Keith, right? But this really pays it off, and I assume we'll continue to see it. There's specific elements of Blade of Marmora that I find really frustrating. So I want to voice those and see if either of you agree with me on that. But let's go through the big highlights of this episode. We'll get to 7 after this, the Blade of Marmora. So let's start with kind of this big revelation towards the end of the episode. It seems like Keith is, I want to say half, but I guess we don't know that for sure. At least part Galrin, right? Kind of a big revelation. Were you shocked, Justin?
I was not, because Delaney and I have been joking, because it started off, the running gag of this season has been Delaney saw on Tumblr like last season theories about Keith being an alien, and she kind of wrote it off. And then the last 3 podcasts, Delaney and I have been like, are we getting alien Keith? Are we building towards alien Keith? are we really getting Alien Keith? We're getting Alien Keith. And so then this episode, I was kind of like, finally, yes, I can't wait to talk about it with Delaney. Because I wasn't shocked. I was just very happy that what we thought was originally just a crack theory turned out to be true.
Nice. We'll get Delaney's reactions when she's back on later in the season. I assume this will be a running plot, so we'll have plenty of Delaney input on this. That's interesting. Jeff, what were your reactions to this plot revelation?
Was not surprised either, because the way he held and carried that knife with him, obviously it was a family heirloom. So, family connection. He has some, but the question I had in my mind was, how far back does this Galran ancestry go? Is it like way, way back? Or, because the vision he had with his father seems to indicate that at least subconsciously he feels that the familial connection is much closer, like his mother. So,
right, yeah. My first reaction was, Keith is Steven! Does Keith's dad just, married a Galran woman? That was kind of my first impression of what was happening in the episode, but this episode never really pays that off or confirms that. But I certainly thought that was what was happening. I think he's just like blatantly half alien, but why would he look like a human then? So
can I give a really? It's going to seem ridiculous, but I think it's very likely that it is his mom, because there was another show around the same time as the original Voltron, Robotech, where they had literally this exact arc of a character whose parents were the first couple of two different species, one human and one the alien and Robotech that I can't remember. And so it seems like they might be doing that specific plot again as like an homage to that almost. And because that character looks so human, it makes sense Keith also looks so human.
Okay. Well, I just hope that in this show, if they do that, they really give a very good reason for why he does not look alien at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. I what Justin said makes a lot of sense. That would, certainly be in theme with this show, as having some homage to a previous plotline and kind of incorporating it in a new way. But I agree with Jeff. I don't really understand why he would be so human looking. Maybe, I don't know, dominant genes. I don't think that really works. But, I think this is an interesting and unlocks a lot of potential for Keith's character, which, certainly he's been more of a highlight this season. Maybe there's like one episode with, episode 6, right? Where he'd been a little bit more of a focus, but clearly, last season, Keith was kind of this nothing character, and they knew they had to address this, and we're clearly addressing it now. So this is them, like, very blatantly addressing a big weak point in the season, and you could even argue that, this was all planned, and they specifically, like, put off this Keith material until season 2. Which I think is an interesting move, not necessarily one you should probably do, but, that's good on Netflix if they like had multiple seasons from the start and could like plan plot arcs like that and stuff. That's pretty interesting. Jeff, any idea of what this might mean for Keith's character, speculations of what would happen with him going forward?
Well, we've got an obvious conflict between him and Allura. Allura has had a lot of distrust towards Galrans in the past, even seemingly good ones. So now that she knows that one of her paladins is one, she might decide to kick him out and take his place among the paladins, and then that's how we get her in a line.
Ooh.
Who knows?
Ooh, I like this. Allura line there. Is this a common fandom theory? Allura is just going to be one of the pilots. I guess it probably.
Yeah, it is a common theory. And to add fuel to the fire, in the original Voltron show, there was a pink paladin. And when we see Allura in her space wear, there is a lot of pink in the theme.
Yeah.
And if she does become, say, quote unquote, the pink paladin, the red line would be the closest fit to that thematically. And I'm assuming she would just go by the red paladin anyway.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would mean, there's a lot of problems with this. Mostly Keith is like, there's a lot of Keith bonding with his lion stuff in this episode, so I don't know how we'd throw that away. But Keith becoming more of like an anti-hero type figure, I think that's really interesting, this concept.
Allura could do something very disquieting and like reset the lion's memory or wipe it.
Ooh.
That would be interesting to watch.
Yeah, kind of like Dark Allura doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A very like Princess Bubblegum kind of plotline. Take the character that we see as this kind of kind guardian character and then kind of unveil these kind of darker tones to it as the seasons progress, but keep her grounded, I think would be really interesting.
That's a really interesting comparison, comparing Allura to a potential Princess Bubblegum. Because, yeah, like you say, Justin, for most of the series, she's kind of the sympathetic figure, and then we learn she's like immortal and kind of takes these potentially morally bad actions, and she's more of just this complicated figure. And I think they've certainly kind of been going that route with Allura a little bit this season, with kind of these racist undertones to her, or however you want to call that. But that's all understandable given the build up they did last season. So, going beyond that, I think we're still kind of in that early bubblegum phase with her. So it like something like an action like this would like push us over the edge. That could be interesting.
But keeping that in mind, Keith would be the second Galra, or at least part Galra paladin, but second only to Zarkon. So how would that they could, if they choose to keep him as a paladin, they could then have the arc of him having to kind of redeem his blood, like of a Galra being a good paladin, like having to redeem his whole species.
Yeah. I could see him taking on that, like feeling he has to take on that role for himself. I think in terms of the show right now, I think this Blade of Marmora is doing a lot of that narratively.
I agree.
Yeah. So this seems like territory that's a good transition too. I assume we'll have much more Keith speculation, if not this podcast, then in the future. But let's transition now. Let's talk about the Blade of Marmora as an organization, because that is covering this like good Galran territory. So also I think this episode kind of cements the Blade of Marmora as just like, this is the resistance in Star Wars. Like this seems like this is going to be their role in the show. Kind of since episode 3, when we kind of introduced them, it seemed like this maybe was where we're going. And for most of this episode, you're like, oh, they're going to be kind of unsympathetic as well. But then at the end, I guess they're on board. Like, do you think they're just going to be played for straight allies now moving forward, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't see any reason to belabor the point of distrust. We sort of dealt with it now, obviously, because their whole thing is secrecy and trust, and the idea that you got this paladin that has a stolen knife, like, where'd you get it? Like, give it back now, because that's important to us. Now there's no need to bicker about that.
Yeah, I agree. That was mostly the role of this episode, is kind of like the we don't trust you type plotline. What do you think of that comparison to Star Wars, Jeff?
I would think mix in a little bit of White Lotus to Star Wars, and you got it.
Okay.
Because they're mysterious and rebel. They're like infiltrating. They come from the ranks. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. I'd be much more interested if they went not a played for straight Star Wars route and added some White Lotus to it. That would be, because I'm kind of worried about this plot being so stereotypical. This is a big frustration with me with the show in general, is their plots being kind of expected and tropey. And I think they went in an interesting direction in this episode, not just them being such allies right away. So I was kind of interested in that, but now we're kind of on the opposite side. So I'd love if there's some more, different tones going on here. What was your impressions of what the Blade of Marmora might be in the show, Justin?
I feel like we're definitely going to go a little bit more White Lotus. I think that they're going to definitely be allies now, but I don't think they're going to be like super buddy-buddy. I feel like there's going to be that level of trust, but the Blade of Marmora is a very strict organization. As we can see, they're very harsh. And I think that style will contrast with the Paladins and kind of their laid back just style. And I don't think there's going to be like, we don't trust you, but there's definitely going to be some conflict. Not from that trust element, but from just the conflicting styles.
Yeah. That definitely could be interesting moving forward. What about how they were presented here as kind of this? It seems a little bit antagonistic for some of the episode. Definitely kind of this strict organization that like they went the route of the guy that was sympathetic to you, he was kind of this rogue agent or something, and we're not going to be sympathetic to you. How do you think Jeff? How do you think of how they portrayed the organization this episode?
I think they portrayed it to good effect. Definitely, really up the stakes in this episode. Particularly with their whole trials thing, that's where their harshness came out, and I enjoyed watching it. Although it did at times get a bit repetitive. Like, oh, okay, he just gets beaten up, and then the whole shtick turned into a riddle, which I don't know how I feel about that whole thing. I mean, yes, it fits into their combat gets knowledge and stuff. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of that little plot twist.
Yeah, it turned out like, oh, this is the true trial is how long he lasts, and
right. And then it's funny afterwards when Shiro said to him, well, I guess fake Shiro, you lasted longer than anyone else. That's sort of like a backhanded like insult. It's like, you took longer than anyone else to figure it out.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that way.
And they was kind of like, is it a dream sequence and stuff like that at the end or is like what's in his head and not, and it was a little complicated there. Justin, what's your thoughts on the portrayal of the organization this episode?
I liked it. I thought it was a good difference from what we saw at Ulos, because I like Ulos a lot. But I think if they just showed up and the Blade of Marmora was like, yay, Voltron's here to save us, it would just be a bit too stereotypical. I thought they needed some conflict. And, I mean, these guys have been fighting the Galra for eons. And so I think they have a very different look at it, because they're like, yes, Voltron's great and powerful, but Voltron left us. And so it's almost like an Avatar feel of like, the Avatar abandoned us. And so I think that gives them the right to be a bit hesitant. And I think, though, that this episode definitely kind of cemented the bond there. But I love their portrayal.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, let me voice kind of my frustrations with this episode. I think most of this episode I kind of didn't understand the motivations of this organization. And it kind of lasted the entire episode. Like in the beginning, I didn't understand why we're being so harsh to Keith and the Paladins. Like, you know, it seemed like a pretty stark contrast to what our expectations going in. And I feel like they didn't do a great job telling me their motivations of why they're acting this way. And then they kind of switch at the end, and it's like just when I'm getting used to them being kind of mean, I didn't really understand why they went back on it. Like the stuff happens with the blade and stuff like that. It just was very like a very stark contrast in these motivations. The transition didn't seem great to me. I didn't really personally like this organization the entire time. It just all seemed a very twisted motivation. And unlike in a broad context, I'm interested in the way that they did this. Like, I'm glad it wasn't such a played for straight portrayal, but watching the episode was a little bit frustrating of an experience for me with this organization, I would say.
It's almost like they have this rule of cool motivation. We got to make them look cool and ninja-like and mean, but we also have to get them on the good guys' side at the end of the episode. And then, the point in which they go good was a bit too late, I think.
So it clearly seemed to me like, okay, the conflict of this episode is that they don't like them, so let's just have them not like them and not worry about too much why, and then, they like them at the end, and so we have to do that kind of late. The show tends to have a problem with putting their reveals kind of late in the episode.
I'll take a different approach to that, Dylan. I think that it says a lot about their motivation. I think they're very prideful of the fact that they are all Galra members fighting back against the Galra Empire, and that being a part of the Blade of Marmora is like a symbol that you're rebelling against your home. And so to see someone who's not Galra carry that blade was like an insult to their, not just their current organization, but everything they stood for, the probably thousands that died in the last like 10,000 years. And so then to see that the blade accepts him, which means he is part Galra, I think that maybe let them accept not just him, but all of Voltron, because they had that Galra connection. And I think their motivation was kind of similar to Alora's of, she hates the Galra. She doesn't think any Galra can be good. They don't think anyone outside of the Galra can fight the Galra.
Okay.
I think that's definitely plausible. I think the episode could have done a better job of explaining that or showing it. Or even telling.
Yeah, my reaction to that is, that sounds great to me. I didn't really get that from the episode. Yeah, that's kind of my reaction. My second reaction is, this organization was kind of being pricks, and it's almost like we're letting them off by like, oh, he's actually one of you. Like, it's okay that you're kind of mad at everyone else because he's one of you. Like, I feel like that doesn't get me to morally sympathize with these people. It's not really like they changed. I feel like it's just that it turns out that they can accept him. So I don't know. I don't know where we'll go with this in terms of. I do think it's interesting if they're not supposed to be that sympathetic. Like going forward, I'm definitely open to them being much better, but I think in terms of this episode portrayal, just specifically, was a little bit frustrating. Let's talk other things. How about? So we have this thing with Keith's blade the whole episode. I don't know. I don't feel the need to dive too deep into it. Any hot takes on the blade and how it was used in the episode?
I mean, it was interesting because in 207 we hear that the planet that the blade was smelted from or mined from, is extinct or gone or whatever for 10 decaphoebs, however long that is. So there's a limited number of these blades going around, and I wonder how they keep track of them. If one of their agents dies, does the blade sort of dissolve or what? Because if not, then anytime one of them dies, then the blade will be lost, and it's plausible that Keith could come across it.
Yeah. So who gives Keith the blade? Was that did the episode tell us that?
It seemed like his dad was offering it to him.
Is his mom
in the vision?
Is his mom a Blade of Marmora agent? Right? Is that what I feel like we need to explore that, I guess.
That seems to be the indication, because the confrontation in 207 makes more sense now. When the shopkeeper's like, I know that this is stolen. Keith is like, it's not stolen. He's like, it has to be stolen, because if only Galra can wield the Blade of Marmora, then obviously looking at Keith, he doesn't look Galran. He has to have stolen it, because it can't be his, because he's not a member of the Blade of Marmora, because he's not Galran. Yeah,
so that'll be interesting where we go with this. We hit on the trials already. I thought that was, I don't know. I never connected too much to this plot within the episode. Any other takes on these trials of Marmora?
Reminded me a lot of the trial, like the Cave of Trials, I think is what's called. It was it's Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. I'm sure that exists in lots of games, but just a series of caves where you go and fight waves after wave, and it just was a bit of nostalgia factor for me. Like, nice. I remember those guys.
Nice, yes. But build up the Zelda hype. Only a month.
Another comparison to Zelda, because all these Robeasts, or whatever we're calling them, are they're basically Zelda bosses. They're the patterns. So Zelda world thing.
Zelda. I love looking at it like that. Like they're just fighting bosses every other
Legend of Voltron.
Legend of Voltron. Yeah. Hashtag for the episode. There you go. This is a very Jeff's on. We got to go to Jeff. Jeff, what do you think of the design of the Blade of Marmora base? First of all, visually the design of it, and then kind of the concept of it being in between two black holes.
Yeah, visually design. I mean, it looked cool. Not much to talk about. Just crag of rock. There's a lot more cool stuff in this universe. I mean, it looks amazing with that blue sun as the backdrop for sure. Like, wow, I'm looking at that right now. It's really pretty. But the concept of having it at this, there's a term for this actually. It's called the Lagrange point, which is a point between two bodies of mass where their gravitational fields cancel out. I don't know if that's technically the right thing. I think it's where something to do with their centrifugal force being precisely enough to orbit it. But basically, it's where you get stable orbits between, say, the Earth and the Moon. In this case, it's between two black holes and a bright blue sun. So that was pretty cool that they had that, and that they also, explain and show that they have to follow this precise path, because they get off it and they will be off their Lagrange path and start falling into a black hole. So I thought that was pretty cool. Nice. Oh, also, how they I loved Hunk's little reaction, because when Pidge was talking about the temperature differential between the inside and the outside of the black hole, I thought that was really funny. It's like, it's how you nuke a frozen burrito. It's like frozen on the inside and hot on the outside.
Right. Yeah. That seems like it's like the writer was trying to put it into terms after looking up the concept, and they put that into the dialogue in the show. I thought that was good too. Yeah.
And then Lance, I think it was Lance who was like, Pidge said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll just be crushed into something." I can't remember the precise lead up, but then someone was like, "That's not better." That was really funny. Yeah. I wish I could get the line better, but.
Yeah, that was. I remember that. That was good. Yeah, this season with the science has been. I don't actually know whether any of this like high physics stuff is true. I think earlier in the season there's a lot of stuff, especially with Kuran like spouting a lot of it sounded
all that's made up. Yeah.
It sounded very fake to me, and it's not really about it being true or not. It's just like, does it like sound good to the watcher, I guess. And the bass, I think they worked it better this episode. With
it's interesting, like they have all these like physical phenomena that provide predicaments. Like, for example, a couple episodes ago, they had the eye of the storm. So yes, that's true. Storms have eyes, and you can hide in them, but you can go into the storm and get torn up. Just they sort of took that out of an atmospheric context and just stuck it in space and said, let's have a conflict around that. And in this case, we have some more natural phenomena, but they are actually space based. We have black holes in a sun, which. I don't really think this configuration, two black holes very close to a sun, is stable. I think they would have just dissolved or merged by now. That just goes with the territory, though, when you're writing a kids show. But it's nice that they're putting physics into the plots.
Yes. Kids show. Oh, no. But yeah, no. I get that. And, it's more like how they handle the presentation of the physics. We'll track that as we go along. Last thing I want to talk about this episode, there's some other minor stuff, but we want to get to episode 7, is this Commander Thrace plot. We had him earlier. We saw him being appointed commander, like in a very Zhao-like scene. And Admiral Zhao now. And now I guess it's the revelation this episode that he's the one that lowered the shields in the season 1 finale. So also what's her face is questioning, but she doesn't figure out that it's him, but he's like the blade of Marmora on the inside. Yeah. So I don't know how's he hiding it? That's kind of.
So my prime theory is that he is aware of the fact that these druids, a lot of their power is illusionary, like, because there's no way that if their power is real, that they can actually, in this case, tell a lie. There's no way that he could evade that, right? Because he's not magic. So either he has some supernatural protection, or he's like, Azula, purple platypus with pink horns and silver wings, psycho, or they're just faking it and they're relying on intimidation to get people to crack.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I don't see, because she's like holding out her hand and making a purple ball, and I don't see the immediate connection between doing that and reading his mind. And again, another thing, if they could have done this, if they can read minds, they would have read that one guy's mind 2 episodes ago before he was put into that row beast, to see, hey, were you actually the one that lowered the shield? Why didn't they do that? Probably because they can't.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that this is maybe more of just kind of an intimidation tactic, and he's just like, I just need to not give in. Yeah, I think that's tough to. That's like, I think if that's true, I think that's supposed to be kind of a surprise. I think this what's her Witch Hagar. I think she's. Up to this point, I don't know how much skeptical of Witch Hagar's powers we've had. Like, maybe that was a plotline season 1. I don't really remember.
No, it would definitely be something completely new, because everything else, she's legit. But I do sense there's some sort of schism between her and Zarkon, and this could play into it. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be an interesting reveal if she's trying to do all these things and it's like she can't actually do some of them.
There's definitely not a lot of corroboration to it. I mean, the more plausible thing is he's just really good at lying or whatever, but
he's just had intense Marmora training.
Yeah, but that doesn't really sit well with me.
Yeah, if she's magic, then she's magic. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah. Justin, what are your impressions of Commander Thrace?
I don't know. I mean, he seems, I guess, sympathetic to the cause, and he seems Blade of Marmorian, but we don't actually know for certain that he's with them. For all we know, he could be like an ex of Keith's mom, who's Skullrud, and he's trying to protect. He's like the Severus Snape of the gang. I don't know. The only time here I have to make the Harry Potter references. Okay. So we haven't confirmed he's Blade of Marmora, is my point. And I mean, I don't see any other likely option. But I don't want to jump the gun too much on that.
Yeah, that's true. I think that earlier in the series, the show heavily implied that the Blade of Marmora is responsible for taking down the shield because they had agents on the inside. And then we see that Commander Thrace here was the one who did it, I guess. So now that, I'm like drawing A to B, but maybe A to B doesn't connect or something. So, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, last point is that Witch Hagar, no Toph, maybe, you know, that's we got to throw in there. She's no Toph, so we'll see. Yeah. So that's good for episode 8 overall. Justin, you really love this one?
Oh yeah, I love this. I saw some of the fight scenes in this were really, really good. Episode 7 had a really good fight scene too, but some of just the designs on the fights, I know you said you got tired of it with keep fighting wave after wave after wave. I liked it. Like, I thought the way they handled it was very nice. I thought the pacing of that scene worked really well. I thought the tone was good. I liked it.
Cool. Jeff?
Love the character design. Love the location design. One little like tidbit that I forgot to mention earlier. It looks like there was one and only one of the Blade of Marmora that I can identify that actually has a tail, which is something I have not seen in any Gara before. So I don't know what to make of it.
Mice people. Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I like this episode. I was frustrated by it, but I'm very interested to see what we do with, this organization in the future. Okay. Let's talk, Space Mall. Probably the best episode title this season, I would say. Space Mall, where?
Not as good as Greening the Cube.
Yeah.
I think you mean anything but yes. Anyway.
I wonder if you guys discussed